Get Gutsy, episode number 191 with Michelle Mazur. 3-word rebellion. Welcome to Get Gutsy. I'm your host, Jenny Fennig, and I am so excited to be on this journey with you. A cutting-edge show blending business and spirituality, Get Gutsy serves up a potent blend of stories, lessons, and tips to help you make a massive impact in the world through your soul's work and your inspired life. No more going it alone, no more excuses. The world needs more brave women saying yes to leadership. Are you with me? Good. Let's get gutsy now. Hey there, Jenny here. Welcome to another episode of Get Gutsy. I am recording this intro with my kids hanging out in my office, so anything goes. I've asked Kate especially to be extra quiet, and then we can have some ice cream after dinner. So I'm going to get this intro recorded for you. By the time this goes live, we will be on spring break. We are heading up to Montreal for spring break. I'm really looking forward to that. Yes, and it is Kate's birthday. That's right. The week of April 16th. She's an April 16th baby. So listen, before I tell you about our guest, I want to make sure you know I am leading a workshop online, and it's totally free. I haven't done a free online workshop all year, and I'm doing it. It's called Do Less and Make More. It's all about mastering your time for maximum impact, income, and fun as a spiritual entrepreneur. I basically want to talk to you about getting a lot done without working 24/7, because working 24/7 is lame. It's not smart. It's not sustainable, and it's not worth it. I have figured some stuff out on my journey. I'm just laughing because Kate is flinging the wheels on Luke's rollerblades. And so that's what's going on. She's being her cute self. I'm recording this. She's in her final days of being a 3-year-old cute little girl. I'm wondering if you have kids too. Then you get it. And that is even more reason to understand how to do less and make more. So I'm going to be going through so many important things that I want you to know about, like working with cycles, seasons, boundaries, and smart calendaring. I'm going to talk to you about how to reverse engineer your dreams to make your big ideas real. We're going to talk about rising above your fear and your doubt, and your limiting beliefs, and how to attract amazing clients continuously who are ready to invest. So we're going deep. It's going to be fun. 2 time slots for you on Tuesday, April 24th. So go to jennyfennig.com/workshop to check it out, jennyfennig.com/workshop, and you can get all of the details. So listen, I got a great guest for you today. Her name is Michelle Mazur, and she's the Communication Rebel. That's the name of her business. And when I found that out, I was like, yeah, because rebel is one of my favorite words in the world. Michelle is an expert in social movements, and she wants to help you build something bigger than yourself. So the question is, are you ready to start a movement? We talk about a lot. We talk about how and why she became a rebel with her own message about public speaking, the importance of messaging, what a 3-word rebellion is, and how to use it to spread your message, and how and why to apply social movement theory to your messaging. There's a lot more that we dive into. I know you're going to love this episode with Michelle Mazur on 3-word rebellion. Oh yeah, and Kate is asking me to put like a necklace around this little dolly that she has. Oh, that looks cool. Life as a working parent. Kate, could I just finish and then I can help you? Oh, she wants it down there. Okay, guys. I want to hear from you too. If we are not connected on Instagram, come on over to my Instagram page. It's Jenny Fennig. Kate is freaking out in the background. That means this intro is over. But make sure you connect with me on Instagram. My Instagram name is Jenny Fennig. Nice and simple. My daughter's freaking out. So this intro is coming to an end. Now you get to enjoy this episode with Michelle Mazur, Three-Word Rebellion. Enjoy it. Michelle Mazur, welcome to Get Gutsy.
Thank you so much for having me, Jenny. This is going to be fun.
It is going to be fun. And I love being able to just kind of see your surroundings. As we were doing a little pre-show banter, I saw this awesome, is that a painting? Like some kind
Yeah.
of really cool, yeah, it's a painting behind you. A lot of people are just listening to this on audio, and I will just describe it. It's this beautiful, like, black cat that is just like with this cool skyline behind it, and then the moon, and then the stars. And I immediately was just struck by that. I'm like, whoa, I think I'm going to like you, Michelle. Plus you have this awesome, like, red in your hair. And I just love all that. So tell everybody where you live, kind of like, where is this place that you call home, or you have all this cool stuff in your house?
Oh, yeah. So I live in Seattle, Washington. So I am just north of the downtown area. And if anybody's been to Seattle and been to the Fremont Troll, the Troll is almost my neighbor. So
okay. What's the Fremont Troll?
Yeah, we have a troll that lives under a bridge.
Oh.
So, and it's really cool. Like, it's this like piece of massive artwork.
Cool.
And yeah, they put it up and no one ever believes me. I tell people, I'm like, there's a troll that lives under our bridge. And they're like, whatever. I'm like, no, really?
Really? That's awesome. That's a cool, kind of like geographical identifier. It's like, okay, yeah, we're just like a mile from the troll,
Yeah.
All right. But that's great. I mean, yeah, I like that. It's like, why not? Why not? So have you always lived in Seattle, or how'd you make your way there?
Yeah, I'm originally from Buffalo, New York. And I left Buffalo when my parents got divorced and we moved to Colorado, and I lived in Loveland. And then for college, I went to Wyoming. And then for grad school, I went to Oklahoma. Then I was a professor in Hawaii. And then after Hawaii, I landed here.
Whoa. Okay. So you've been around. What's your favorite place?
I really love living in Seattle, and the city is changing so much right now, but it's just, after I lived in Hawaii, and Hawaii was a whole story. I was a professor at the university, and it's a hard place to live if you're not married.
Okay.
Because like the idea of exotic in Hawaii is not a Polish girl from New York. So, so dating was not happening while I was there. And I just was like, okay, like this is not working. And then I decided I had friends in Seattle. And so I ended up here, and I met my husband.
Did you quit your job? Like, did you quit? You're like,
yes.
I'm out. Like University of Hawaii?
Yes.
You're just like, I gotta go. Like, how did that go down?
It went down fine. I don't think they were terribly surprised, because right before I ended up putting in my notice, I spent 6 months in London with I took students from Hawaii over to London, and living in London, you're like in this like such a vibrant city where there's always something to see. You can go to a play or a musical. You can go see all this fantastic art. And then I got back to Hawaii, and I was just like, I can't live here anymore. So I gave notice, and they weren't really surprised. But the great thing about academia is I gave a year's notice, because it takes a year to replace a professor.
Wow.
So I knew they would let me teach my scheduled classes. And that was kind of fun, because I had a year to I was teaching 2 classes, and then I didn't have to do research anymore. So I was just hanging out.
Got it. Yeah, I always thought it would be cool to be a professor. Like, I just kind of saw that when I went to the University of Florida, and I considered that as a path, because I enjoy teaching. I just really enjoy teaching, which is so much of what I do now. Like, that's what I do. I just don't do it like under a university umbrella. But I know it's not all roses and rainbows.
No, there's a lot of politics.
Yes.
There's,
Getting
well,
tenured and all that kind of thing. Like the game. You have to be willing to play the game.
yeah, you have to play the game and be willing to read the writing of undergrads for the rest of your life, which is not the most scintillating reading material. Like, I love teaching. I loved being in the classroom. Grading was a different story.
Got it. So what were you teaching there? What were your classes? Something in
Yeah, so I
communication?
taught all things communication. So I did argumentation and debate, persuasion, interpersonal communication. I taught a hybrid class of how interpersonal and mass media relate to each other and how we talk about it.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, so I got to teach some really fun and cool classes. And I also taught research methods and statistics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we were kind of I majored in public relations, so I had some of those classes. You know, they might have
Yes.
called something different, but cool. Okay, so you gave your notice. You're just chilling. You're teaching your classes. You don't have to do the research anymore. You decided you were going to make a move to Seattle.
Yes.
And did you have another job there at a different university or what?
No.
How did that? Okay, you're just like Seattle because you had some friends there, you said?
Yeah. Yeah. So it was between Seattle and San Francisco because I had friends in each place and I knew I wanted to live like in a city.
Right.
And I was really leaning hard towards San Francisco, but something just didn't feel right.
Mm-hmm.
And I have wonderful friends in San Francisco, but I was just like, ooh. And all of a sudden, like at the last minute, I was like, no, I think Seattle's right. Like, I think that's where I need to be.
Uh-huh.
So I moved here. I slept on a friend's couch for a couple of months. And then, yes.
That's
and then
yeah.
And then I just kind of
sleep on a couch.
I know. And then I was just kind of piecemealing income together. Like I picked up a course at UW. I was doing some statistical analysis. I had a job at Harborview Medical Center in the psych department doing research. So, which was an interesting place to work.
Like with psychiatric patients, you mean?
Yes. I mean, I didn't deal with the psychiatric patients, but psychiatrists themselves are very curious people.
Tell me more. Tell me more.
So there was this one time we were all having lunch. It was like staff and faculty lunch together, and they're all talking, and they start going around the room talking about how they would commit suicide. Like, oh, I would go to this certain building in Vancouver and jump off because the view would be beautiful on the way down and there's no cars below. And I'm like, what is this? And then it got to me and I was like, I have never thought about this.
Right. Right.
And they're like, oh yeah, because you're not trained in the same way. I'm all like, yeah, and I'm not crazy.
Yeah, thank God, you know, thank God to do this. Well, they probably deal with a lot of this with their patients too, or like they're needing to walk them through like how not to do that and how to take them off the ledge and all that. So that's interesting. So you're kind of like, I'm in the wrong room. Like I don't need to be in this room. Mm-hmm.
I know. I was like, this conversation's really freaking me out. And they thought it was funny that it was freaking me out, but I'm just like, I didn't think about this. Like, what are you doing?
Okay. So thank you for sharing that story. So you were kind of just cobbling together your existence, living on this couch. And then how did you eventually, you know, now you have this business called Communication Rebel. Like, how did that come into being? Was that
so
light bulb or what was the agenda?
No. So I decided, I was here in Seattle and I ended up getting a job in market research. So I was doing research for like food companies like General Mills, Kerrygold, Kraft. And because I was like, I have a PhD, I'm a researcher, I'll do research. And that was rather soul sucking.
Yeah.
And at one point, I was probably a few years into the market research job. One of my friends pulled me aside and was like, are you really happy doing this? And I was like, not really, but you know, it's a job and sometimes it's super fun and you know, you get to talk to people and I got to travel and I was speaking for the company. And he just said to me, Michelle, you have all of this great knowledge about communication. He's like, you are a talented speaker. You are an excellent coach for speakers. Why aren't you sharing that somewhere? He was just like, just do something, start a blog, share it somewhere. And that really stuck. So I started my blog and it was called Relationally Speaking, which was a terrible name because relationally isn't a word. but it was, centered around this belief.
Got you started.
Yeah, it got me started. And, I believe that communication changes the world and it should be fostering relationships. So it got me started, and I was terrible at blogging because I was an academic, which is a snooze fest. So my writing was terrible.
Super, like dry and like with footnotes and stuff.
Yeah, I felt like I had to cite everything, and it was just like
that about research. And that's why I couldn't do it, because that would kind of, side note, I don't want to hear more of that story, but at one point my client was Pfizer, talk about and so my job was to, in order to say anything there in like a press release, PR, press release or a fact sheet, like stuff we would be sharing with the media, everything had to be cited. And we'd have to deliver, like we killed so many trees with these packets that we'd have to deliver with all the background stuff to just say like a one sentence, it was all this backup, and they have to go in front of these review committees. And I remember I felt so stifled, which is probably how you eventually felt when you're like, I just want to say this thing. Like, I just want to, I know it. Like, I know it to be true. I know it. This is what needs to be said. And so that's what you kind of still had that in you as you were writing this blog, but like no one was going to come after you, like get you in trouble.
No, it wasn't going to be peer reviewed. I wasn't sending this to my peers who were like, let me analyze if you did this correctly and the research and the logic. And I'm like, oh. And so it took a while to break. And the tipping point for me is I went to a conference and I saw this speaker who it was just phenomenal, and phenomenal in a bad way. Like she started her speech and she was like, all right, everyone, stand up. So we're good audience members and we stand up. And she says, now clap. So we start clapping. And then she said, oh my gosh, you have given me a standing ovation. Now I must earn it.
Interesting. Yeah.
And my friend sitting next to me took this woman's order form that was sitting on our chairs, and she started ripping it up.
Wow.
And I just wrote out this ranty blog post about how not to be a motivational speaker, because it actually just got a lot worse.
Oh, okay.
Like she was like in people's faces saying like, why aren't you following your dream? And they're like, oh, I don't know.
Yeah. And using like NLP type stuff, like
And so what ended up happening is like that was a blog post that scared me because it was like super, super ranty. And I put it out there and I was like, oh gosh, I'm going to hear something about this.
Right.
And I did, but it was from someone who read it and loved it and was like, hey, I need to work with someone on my speaking. I have this big engagement coming up. Can I work with you? And I was like, sure, I don't have a business or pricing or anything, but yes. And what was funny is he was speaking at Barbara Bush's Points of Light Foundation.
Wow.
Yeah, in front of that political sphere and celebrity and everything. Wow. So that was my very first client.
That's all. See, okay, so by you just telling the truth, putting it out there, unfiltered, uncensored, like I don't know, someone's going to say something about this, but I'm doing it anyway. That led to your first client, really, in that realm. So how did you? Because a lot of our listeners are in that space. So I have a lot of coaches in particular who they're doing it, they're sharing, their social media, they're blogging, and whatever it is they're doing, telling the truth, which is what we've got to do, the willingness to tell the truth. And then boom, the opportunity comes. So how did you then put together an offer? How did you know what to give this guy and charge him for it? How did you come up with that?
Yeah. So I probably way undercharged because I didn't know what I was doing.
I look back at some of my first packages like, whoa, that costs a lot more now, but you don't know. You just got to get out there.
Yeah. And I knew that, like he had some material that he was working from, which was great. So I was like, I think we can do this in 4 or 5 sessions. And I think I charged him like $1,200, which is really...
But you know what, Joel? He was like a great first client for you. And you did it. Like you just came through. You weren't going to be like, no, I'm not ready yet. I don't even have a back. Like, I'll just come up with something. I'll give him a price and we'll see. And did he jump and pay in full?
Yep. It was like, no problem. He was like, okay, that seems fair. And I found out later he was working before me. He was working with a coach that charges like $5,000 a day.
So you are a steal. Yeah.
I know. And he was like, yeah, you're so much better.
Well, yeah. I mean, you were exactly what he needed. You were specific. There's
Yeah.
some coaches who are more generalist or more like mindset and things like that. But
Mm-hmm.
you really satisfied a need. Like you were going to solve a problem for him, and he was, willing to do it. So,
Yeah.
how did that engagement then set you up for what you were going to create next?
Yeah, it helped me start thinking about, well, I ended up hiring like a business coach, and
Yep.
she helped me define some packages,
Yep.
like what could I offer? What could that look like? And then after a while, I ended up not exactly knowing I was doing this, but I started like I got a signature methodology. Like
Right.
I developed a process and a framework, and I was
Yeah.
like, oh, and then I was reading somewhere one day and I was like, oh, I did that rather intuitively because I'm a planner. Like I like to go into meetings with clients and know exactly what we're going to be tackling that day or what we're going to be working on instead of being like, we'll see what comes up, because that stresses me out. So yeah, so that just helped me get some packages going and flesh out my methodology and how I wanted to work with people. And it also made me realize that I'm really good with the messaging side of speaking. Like I'm happy to give people feedback on their delivery and getting on stage and how to use the stage. But what I'm the best at is that writing the speech and making sure your audience processes the speech in a way that gets them to take an action or to convert. So I'm always very audience centered. And I was like, okay, yeah, that's my sweet spot. Like I love the messaging. And I've also noticed now that the best part about it is that my clients end up using their messaging for everything. It's not just a speech. It's like, it's the website, it's the tagline, it's the stories they tell on podcasts. And that's super fun to watch.
Yes, exactly. And that's really kind of the power of a strong message, that strong hook, when you realize like, what is the thing that ties it all together? Look at it as like a giant umbrella, and the things just, go underneath. And it can be hard to find that for yourself because you're so in it, right? Like you probably, even though this is what you do and you can do it, it's harder because you're just in it, and somebody else can, it's like, it's hard to cut your own hair. You need that person who can see it because they can see the back and you can't. And, it looks like you're here, but you're over here. And so you have to have that person who's got that perspective, who can pull things out of you that are actually very unique. And to you, you also think that's not that big of a deal. Everyone's good at that. Like that happened for me recently. I realized like one of my huge strengths is, yes, I know how to create packages. I've done that quite a bit in my business, but I really love program design. Like programs is different than package, right?
Yeah.
You can deliver one-on-one. Programs you tend to have a group in there, right? Like a program, a retreat, a course. And I was assuming like, well, everybody just knows how to do that. It's just, you just do that. And then I'm like, oh wait, no, they don't. And so that's the thing. If something comes so easily to you, you might disregard it. And so when you have somebody like you who can, pull that out, see where your strengths are, like, oh my God, that story, like that's the story. Like that is the thing that is going to connect you to your audience. Oh my gosh, that's so rad. So you've been just, going on this journey, realizing that this messaging piece is so critical for you. And so are you still, is the bulk of your work, is it these, premium one-on-one clients? Kind of give us a sense of the design of your business.
Yeah. So I definitely, right now, I'm only working one-on-one. I do want to think, well, my coach is pushing me to do some retreats and live events where we get groups together, because there's such power in people coming together to figure out their message, because you get to hear it from multiple perspectives, not just mine. So I'm thinking about doing that in the future. But right now, it's one-on-one, which I love because I get to dive deep with people. And I've, right now I'm at the point where I've developed like this 3-word rebellion framework that finds that kind of like hook, that story that you want to be telling, the change you want to create for your audience and for your people. And this like the process, I love running my clients through it because I can literally take them from, I'm so frustrated, I don't know what my 3-word rebellion is, to 20 minutes later being like, oh, here it is, right here for you, delivering it. So I'm love like having that interaction and, pointing it out and saying like, this is the thing that you say all the time. Like, this is what you're rebelling against. And this is the change you want to create for people. And you say this all the time. In their free writes, I'm able to analyze and be like, you said this word like 6 times.
Got it. So when someone knows what their 3-word, what is it? Rebellion, like
rebellion.
The 3-word rebellion is, then what do they do with that?
So then what they do, so this messaging work is really based out of social movement theory.
Okay.
That's where I got or drew a lot of it from because I did want to start doing work that was more impactful. It wasn't just about getting people speaking gigs or making sure they had a clear message, but I really wanted people to build something bigger than themselves. Like, how do you call in that audience? So once they have the 3-word rebellion, then we start working on the inciting incident. And every movement has an incident that occurs that causes things to happen. So right now, Donald Trump being elected would be an inciting incident for a lot of groups.
Yes.
And as business owners and speakers, every time we give a speech, that's an inciting incident. Every time we communicate, that's an inciting incident. So it can be working on the speech and the story and the audience journey you're taking them on. Or for some clients, it really is about developing those talking points in those stories so that they are getting known for their 3-word rebellion and they can spread their message. Like, people are talking about it.
Wow. So do people, kind of, where are most of your clients in their journey when they choose to work with you? Have they been in business for some time and they're just kind of like, as I've been in business myself for 10 years, and you'll go out with, certain messaging and kind of stories, and your offerings reflect that, like where you are at that stage. And then I don't know about you, Michelle, or just what you've seen with your people, but you evolve, you evolve. You're like, I don't want to talk about that anymore. Like, I'm going over here now because the world is shifting. I can't tolerate some of the things that I'm seeing out there, and we're going to talk about that. And so what have you seen with those who are like really compelled to work with you? Are they just at this tipping point where they've achieved a certain level of success, but it just feels a bit like there's more and they need that guidance to really like hone in? Plus the market is so saturated now. So you've really got to be super clear and be very, very compelling out there.
Yes. So I always see my people as like being in a transition. So sometimes kind of the 2 groups that I see the most are people who have had a very successful business and they really want to step away from some of that work and be the face of their business and establish themselves as an influencer, a thought leader. And that's who ends up coming with me because they have this huge body of work and they have no idea how to talk about it or package it up. And then the other people who tend to come to me are people who have been running a side hustle for a long time and have had a day job, and then they quit and they know that they've been working on their own methodology, their own body of work, and they want to add speaking or workshops into the mix, and they need to work on the messaging for that. So those are my 2 sweet spots. So people who've been in business for a while and then want to pivot to being the face, and people who are transitioning like full time in their business and also want to be the face of their business.
Yes. Love that. Okay, cool. So how'd you get to the rebel piece? Like how'd you get there?
So that was a bit of a journey, and there were 2 inciting incidents really that made that happen. The first one was I took Sally Hogshead's How to Fascinate assessment.
Yeah, I'm taking that. Mm-hmm.
Yes, which was very revealing to me because I am a Maverick leader, which is innovation and power.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, I was still in my day job, and I remember talking to my boss, and I was just like, "Oh, this assessment, it's so off." I'm all like, "It says I'm creative. I'm not creative. I'm the least creative person here." And he just looked at me and said, "You're the most creative person here. When we have tough analysis, I give it to you because you're good at seeing patterns and tying things together." He's
Mm-hmm.
like, "You're very creative." And I'm like, "Oh,
Mm-hmm.
interesting."
Mm-hmm.
And then the second part of it, about 2 years into my business, I was just so sick of all the public speaking advice that was out there. It
Mm-hmm.
feels like this laundry list of like things to do, like what to do with your hands on stage, how to speak, how to
Mm-hmm.
turn, blah, blah, blah. Like, yeah, like all the tips and tricks. And I'm like, I don't want to write like that. Like,
Right.
I'm not interested. And some of that advice sucks. Like, it's
Right.
terrible advice,
Right.
especially for certain kinds of speakers.
Right.
So I'm like, oh, there's this opportunity for me to go against what I'm seeing in the industry and do something different
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
give people permission not to follow the tried and true public speaking
Right.
rules of how to show up on stage or how to do your message,
Mm-hmm.
and give people more flexibility so that they could be more them on stage.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. And so that's how you realized like you were going to teach them how to be a rebel, how to
Mm-hmm.
rebel against some of that stuff. Yeah. When I saw that was, the name of your business, Communication Rebel, it just, triggered something in me. When I was in high school, I had these two friends and we named ourselves the Ruthless Rebels.
I love it.
We had keychains made at the mall that said Ruthless Rebels, and it had our names, our three names on there. Like I had
Aww.
red, one had blue, one had green. I don't know, we all had our own little colors. And, and so that word has always kind of just stood out to me. There's actually, I can't remember the street, but next time you're in New York City, just ask. There's this street there, and I randomly was walking by several years ago, and there's a huge wall that's spray painted with the word rebel. You got to get your photo in front of there. I was like, and so I just had a friend. I was like, oh my God, can you take my picture in front of me? It's beautiful. It's like this beautiful graffiti wall that just says rebel, super huge. So I love that word. I think we need more rebels. We need more, renegades, mavericks, people who are willing to say like, no, that's ridiculous. Or we don't have to do it like that. Or I know that these people are all doing it like that, but I don't want to do it like that. And,
Mm-hmm.
and it can feel a bit, it's counterintuitive to the way the world operates, but
Yes,
that's the way that we are going to, really stand out. And I love how your work is rooted in, like you said, the social movement theory. Like you just bring so much kind of expertise and, all the moves that you made, all the careers, all the, places that you lived, set you up to be doing what you're doing now,
mm-hmm.
which is so rad. So as you look to, the future, what are you most excited about? You're considering offering up retreats, as part of your business.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I am working on the 3-word rebellion book.
That's right. Okay.
Because like, honestly, this 3-word rebellion thing came as almost like a divine download.
Yes.
Like I had lunch talking about getting your message straight with someone else. I had lunch with a book coach named Jenny Nash. She was in town teaching Creative Live.
Mm-hmm.
And we were just talking through, my process and what like ticked me off about the speaking industry and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, ooh, I love this idea of like a 3-word speech and having a framework. And I was like, ooh, what if it's a 3-word rebellion?
Mm-hmm.
And literally that day, like all the chapters came into focus.
Mm-hmm.
And it's work I've been doing for a while, but it just got so clear.
Yes.
So I'm in the middle of writing the book right now.
Good.
I'm planning to launch it in September if all goes well. Because
so you're going to self-publish?
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes. Because my goal was, and when I was talking with Jenny, the book coach, she was just like, this message needs to be out there now, not 2 years from now.
Which is the process of traditional publishing. That's exactly what I went through with my book, Get Gutsy. I knew for a while, I'm like, I got to write this book. And then I had a coach. We did like this VIP day, and she just looked at me in the eye. She goes, Jenny, it's time for you to write your book. I'm like, I know. And so it was like, okay, you've called me out. And then but it's a big undertaking. You have to energetically make space and physically make space and have like writing days. Like, it doesn't just get written because you think about it. You have to actually write it. And so, I had talked to like an agent like connection that I had, and I had just such like oh my God, a deer is walking by my window right now.
That's so cool.
So bad. I'm like, oh yeah, if anyone who's watching this video, we have a major snow coming down right now, and it's like beautiful out there. That's a message for us, Michelle, and everybody. Spirit animal deer right now. Okay. So yeah, the agent, I just remember I was like, yeah, I'm not doing that right now. Not to say that eventually I won't go the traditional publishing route, but that first one, I was like, I'm not waiting. I'm doing this. And you can, like, with, Amazon, create space, like however you want to kind of work that, but it's so doable. Many of my clients do it. Actually, when I published my book, I ended up creating a program afterwards called the Book Writing Immersion, because I'm like, I just wanted to help people through that. And like, so it wasn't as clunky as when I was piecing it together. And so everybody who's listening, if a book is inside of you, get that baby out. What will happen for you, Michelle, is it's just going to open up this next level of the work. And then you'll have other stuff that's going to flow out. Like, what I found was that book it needed to come out first. Like, it was kind of clogging up the other stuff.
Oh, yes.
It was like the book came, and then my coaching school came, and then this next level of my mastermind came, and then I started leading retreats like abroad. But that book had to happen. Like, that framework had to get laid down. You needed to go through that process, and then you can touch more lives with your message, and then whatever's going to come next will come.
Yeah. And for me, it's about launching 1 million rebellions. And I just am like, I need to get this into the hands of people.
Yes.
And not have it be like a big deal. I mean, a book is a big deal.
Yes.
And I just was like, okay, this is going to be really useful, not just to business owners or speakers, but I think even to people who are starting a movement or want to call in people and find that right message that gets people excited and bought in and wanting to spread it.
Yes.
So I'm like, oh yeah, like this book needs to like get out into the world.
Good. All right. Well, sending you so much love as you keep taking those steps, you birth that baby. It's going to be worth it. All the labor pain is going to be worth it. Wow, Michelle. Okay. So how can people find you online? How can they go deeper into what you do?
Yeah. So I'm at drmichellemazur.com. And if you're interested in the 3-word rebellion, I put a playbook online for anyone that wants to go through the process, because I know you all need messaging help, and having a framework is awesome. And it's super simple to like do the writing. So that's at 3wordrebellion.com.
Cool. And it's the number 3?
Or 3 spelled out.
3 spelled out. Okay. 3wordrebellion.com. Okay. We'll have those on our show notes page. So you will be all set with that. That's cool. Playbook. I like it. Very tantalizing. Okay, Michelle, this is the finale question I ask. It's time. What is the gutsiest move you've ever made, and how does it inspire your life and work today?
So this brings us full circle back to the beginning of the interview. So when I was living in Hawaii and I got back from London, while I was living in London, my mom passed away.
Okay.
And I was also in a relationship with a boy that lived in London. And
that you met when you were in London, because you were there for 6 months. You met this guy.
Yeah.
And your mother passes away. Okay. So this is like, a lot.
Yes. So this is a lot. And so originally my plan was to go back to London and be with this boy. And I got back to Hawaii and literally just burned everything to the ground. I quit my job. I broke up with the boy. I was still like grieving the loss of my mom. So there was just like all of a sudden, all of this loss. The career I always wanted was burned to the ground. The relationship I thought I wanted, I realized, oh no, this is a big mistake, so I realized like my resiliency and my strength to be able to change everything and not know exactly what I was going to do. Cause I did a lot of Googling at the time for like, how do you transition out of academia to the real world? And now there are like coaches and stuff for that. But there wasn't. Right. There wasn't then. I mean, I found like 3 articles about it online.
Transition is painful.
Yeah. And so it was just this big transition. And I think as I've moved forward, like this last year, I ended up pivoting my message away from like how to get paid for speaking and how to get clients for speaking and all of that to this more social movement. Let's create something bigger for you and your business.
Yes.
And it's a big pivot. Like it's a really big pivot. But I was like, you know what? I burned other things to the ground.
Totally.
So I can change this. So that whole grieving and loss experience and change made me realize that if something's not working the way that I want, I can change it. And if I give it a little space, what's next appears.
Yes. That's so beautiful. Yeah. I think when you have that very hard experience, like you did, where you were just willing to shed. And when you go through a death, in particular, it's like the thing that you don't ever want to have happen, then it happens. Because death is a part of life. And you're like, okay, I made it through that. I can do this, I can do this. I can handle this. And I'm so glad that you made that pivot. Like when you were explaining this, and I didn't know that this was going to be what you talked about, for this final piece, I felt your energy and I felt myself being excited about it. I'm like, yeah. And there's so much of that other stuff that's kind of the easy route, honestly, because that it will sell and people will buy that. You're like, oh, okay. Yeah. Cause I need clients. So I'm going to buy that. But it's like boring, that to me.
It's so boring.
It's just like boring because, if you have like an iota of a brain, like you can figure out how to get the clients and do those because you can just follow the steps, there's like these step-by-step things. But in this time that we're living in, like we don't have the luxury of just phoning it in, of just being like, well, I got, some clients from my talk. So it worked. Like, really? That's what you want to do? Like that's your definition of success? Like, don't you want to create a movement? Like get people to really transform, like make some massive changes that they need to make because the way they're engaging in the world is like unhealthy. It's like killing their soul. And society would be fine to keep you in that place because you're kind of just like the cog in the wheel. You're just like continuing on. But what you're doing is you're waking people up to your message is this catalyst for what we need in the world right now. It's kind of like what those kids in, Parkland, Florida. That is like, holy crap. Like they're taking it and they're going and they're starting like the movements that have the 3 words or you know what I'm saying? Like it's happening. And like because you have that background in the research and what you're talking about, I feel like this is it. I'm really excited for you. And this book is going to make a major impact in the world.
I'm so excited for it too. Like I'm really ready, just ready for it.
And you must be. And you see my sign. I have the sign in my office. The work continues. Stay fierce. So that's kind of been like my rebellion recently is that it's like this work. I got that. I went to Salem, Massachusetts earlier this year and I've never been there before, but I just read the book Witch by Lisa Lister. It's like so good. And I'm like, oh my God, I have to go. I live in Massachusetts. I'm like, I should go there. Like, I've been living in Massachusetts for almost 8 years now. I've never been to Salem. Let me just go and just feel it, feel that energy, feel what, women went through when we were misunderstood because we were, standing in our power, which still happens. And I found that in a really cool store. And as soon as I saw those words, I'm like, and so that has become like my new,
love it.
Yes. It just gets me super amped up to, stay committed to the work. And that's my fascination is like, this is the work, the work is to go through those transformations, to be able to claim the thing that you really want to talk about, even if you weren't really talking about that before so much, or like most of your industry is talking about this other stuff that you're kind of like, who cares,
I know. I was telling someone that I actually position my business against TED and the entire speaking industry.
Okay.
Because I'm all like, we don't need more ideas to spread. We need things to change, and we need people taking action, and people don't take action from a TED talk. Like, let's stop spreading ideas like they're a virus and actually give people something to do.
Yes. Wow. That's good. You got to put that in your book. That's good. Because I almost feel like TED has become this commodity where
it has.
People are just like, I got to get on this like TED stage, and then you've got the video reel, and then you're like the TED speaker. And I think it started, in a different, it had different intentions when it started out. And my last corporate career was in conference production. And so TED was like the holy grail, but there was only one at that time. It was like the main one. And they had the best speakers, and it was curated and like beautiful. And it really it stood for something. And now it's become this like this business. It's not that it wasn't a business before, but it's just like kind of cloned itself, and all these other people are in charge. And it's become this thing that like you're supposed to do. So then you can say that you did that.
Yeah, it's kind of like the same as getting into Huffington Post or something. It's pretty easy to get into Huffington Post, or it used to be. I know they shut down their contributors, but that's not why you want to do it. Like, it should be about spreading the message. And it has become like, I feel like TEDx is about as exclusive as getting into Walmart. There's my rebel view for the day.
Yes. So I think it's, when for everybody tuning in, be aware of the game that's being played. There's always games that are being played. Yes. And so just know, what's the game that's being played? Are you willing to play it? What are the rules? What do you have to do to succeed at that game? That to me was like high school. It's like, okay, I see the game that's being played here. Here's how I'm going to show up. Here's the moves that I'm going to make the best use of these 4 years that I've got here. And then boom, I'm not going to play that game anymore. And I think we have to be really mindful of that. And I'm curious your thoughts too, Michelle, and then we'll end. I want to be mindful of your time. But I almost feel like so much of I've been thinking about this recently, and I'm kind of like, get this out of my head. I don't know if this is helpful, but like, I can't help it. These things are happening. I feel like so much of the online space is like high school all over again. And I'm like, dudes, like, here we are. We're back. And I'm not interested in getting selected for homecoming court anymore. Like, it was so important to me when I was 17. And now it's just not. And there's so much of that. And I think, especially for people who are newer, it can be overwhelming, because you're like, oh my God, like, these are the cool kids, and I've got to do what the cool kids are doing and the cool kids are saying so I can be included. And then you're not really like saying what you really think, like saying what you really feel, or creating what's in your heart. And so you've got to be that rebel, you've got to be that one who's like, no, I'm not going to be an affiliate for this person, even though I can make $1 gazillion, or I'm not going to blah, 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 because that's just not, it's not advancing the work, it's not. And I think there's a lot of people out there. I tend to notice like, actors who are just like Sean Penn, like super, she's like, I don't go to the freaking Oscars. There's an actress, Lauren Ambrose. Do you know her?
Yes.
Yes. I was 6 Feet Under. Were you a fan of 6 Feet Under?
Oh yeah. Huge fan.
Huge. She lives in my town. When I moved here, I was like, oh my God. Like, I was like hyperventilating when I'd run to turn the grocery store. I'm like, there's Claire. And she was just interviewed. She rarely gives interviews. I actually invited her to like speak at one of our retreats once. I'm like, oh my God, maybe she'll come and speak. Claire will speak. But she declined. She's just not her game. She's not really on social media, but she's in a new production, musical theater in New York. And she gave this interview, and it was just like, I loved her message because she's a freaking rebel. Like, she's just not interested in, because you know what? She's focused on the work. Like, she doesn't want all that other, and not that other stuff is wrong or bad, or that you shouldn't do it if you are called to operate in that way, but just know that it's not required, like, and if it's detracting you from the work, from the spirit of the work, then you really need to check your intentions.
Well, and I think this is kind of like the woo part of it, is that we are at this like fulcrum or tipping point where some of those leaders, quote unquote, the cool kids, are going to start falling away, and there are going to be more leaders rising up who have a different message, who are more inclusive, and it's not like you have to say what they have to say. Like, you can talk, you can be messy, you can disagree, you can have your own viewpoint. And that's something, especially with all the social changes that I'm seeing, is there are new leaders that are going to rise. And my prediction is in the next 2 to 3 years, like, the cool kids will be the old cool kids, like the 25-year-olds still hanging out around high school, because those were the good old days.
Right. It'll be very fascinating to see how things continue to evolve. I'm so happy to have connected with you, Michelle. You're amazing. I love your energy. Everybody go check her out, drmichellemazur.com and 3-word rebellion.com. Let's all commit to being rebels, shaking up the status quo, and leaving this place better than we found it. I'm right there with you. Thanks everybody for tuning in. This is Jenny Fennick sending you so much love, light, and faith, and rebelliousness as you get gutsy. I will see you next time.
Hey, this is John Lee Dumas of EO Fire, and you're listening to Get Gutsy with Jenny Fennick. Gutsy leaders unite and ignite.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Get Gutsy as much as I enjoyed creating it for you. Are you responsible for leading and growing your spiritual business? If so, I have a free tool for you that will help you spread your message like wildfire. It's called the Sacred Marketing Puzzle, and it's a 1-page PDF guide that simplifies the often mysterious and confusing world of marketing. When you use sacred marketing tools to amplify your message, you'll provide huge value to your tribe and grow your business. What are you waiting for? Go to jennyfennick.com/puzzle to get yours instantly. That's jennyfennick.com/puzzle. Gutsy leaders, unite.